The GameMT EX8 is here, and this thing has an incredible screen and awesome sound for Game Boy Advance. Take a listen.
Crash, crash, crash.
So yeah, let's dive in. We're going to unbox and take a look at the GameMT EX8, their most ambitious and premium attempt at a handheld yet, featuring the G99, a processor we've seen in handhelds like the Ioneo Pocket Micro Classic and regular version, as well as the KTR1. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. But let's take this out, take it for a spin, find out what we find. And again, I'm really impressed with this gorgeous high resolution screen. All right, so let's start with the box. And the box is nice and clean. This is a little bit in the vein of the style they used with the E5 Ultra. I like it. It's got a picture of the unit on the top. It does say GameMT EX8, and it does have the white and purple one. Not sure if all boxes look that way. Looking around the box, there is not a lot of information though, so pretty kind of minimalistic and classy, which is something you might like. One thing I found to be interesting is that there's a little black sticker on this. Now, I ordered the white one, so I think they just put the wrong sticker on this. But let's open this up and find out and see inside what we got, because I really hope I got the white one with the purple. And opening up, and as it spills out here, first thing we have is a card. A lot of these companies are starting to use these cards, which I like. I think it's good instead of a manual. It probably saves on cost, and it looks nice. It really looks nice and premium. And you can see here, it is in Mandarin and English. And then we have the specs here. Now the colors are calling them iron black and pearl white. So kind of like that. Now again, here we go with the display, the 4.8 inch IPS FD full HD resolution, 1620 by 1080. That's that golden 3:2 ratio. That's that same ratio we saw on the KTR1. However, the KTR1 says it's a 4.5 inch. So this is a bigger screen if that is to be correct. The CPU is the MediaTek G99 and the ARM Mali G57. This is running 6 gigs of RAM and a 128 gig ROM. Now 6 gigs of RAM is fine for Android. It would be nice if it had bumped up to 8, but you're not going to really play Switch on this. So I think 6 gigs is more than enough. Save money, especially with the cost of the RAM right now. So below that, we'll get the handheld out of the way. And this is where things get interesting, because as you saw here, the caps are not on the handheld. Take a look. I sure hope the caps are in here, because there's nothing under here except one little box. Now in this box, I expected to find a USB-C cord, but there's no USB-C cord. But the caps are in here. So we do have that. So I don't know if mine is just missing or something, but all I got was the card, the handheld, and then a box with the caps. So no screen protector, no USB-C cord, which is fine. It's Android. I've got tons of those. I don't really need one. But if you're somebody that doesn't actually have one, they'll say you don't have USB-C, you might need to be aware of that, because that's a little bit kind of interesting. But let's get this thing in our hands. And first impressions, this thing feels like I thought it would. I always thought the shape of this was a bit little awkward or whatever. It has sort of some sharp corners. It's not heavy, but I'll say the build quality on this feels okay. It definitely feels improved from what GameMT has been doing. Every iteration that they seem to release does get better, and I've got to commend them for that. Going all the way back to that original E6, which was pretty bad. They've iterated and released versions to make it better, and we've gotten to a point where things are better. The first thing here are the sticks. We're using the sticks that I love, so good job there. It's got the improved sticks. Now the stems on these sticks are sticking way up. That is a little bit interesting, because if you wanted to make this pocketable, that's not going to be great. Even though you can take the stem caps off and help it be pocketable, these are kind of out there. Now, I don't think that that's a negative so far, but I wanted to point that out. Let's start testing the buttons. And oh, the buttons are just like the E6, E5 Ultra. I love these buttons. I think they're the same ones. They feel really good. They're almost like micro switch buttons, but I think they're rubber membrane. They feel really nice though. They're not real super. I mean, they're kind of quiet, but they're not super quiet. This D-pad, this is a new D-pad for them. They keep trying to change the D-pad, and the D-pad feels pretty good. I like the D-pad. It's got a nice pivot to it. It feels good. It's sort of pivoting well. I like the shape of it. We already talked about the sticks. At the bottom, we have those same four buttons. We do have their T and K, whatever that means, and then we have an M and O button, which is menu and home. The front glass looks okay. I know some people are not a fan of that, and perhaps they could have saved costs and appealed to a lower price crowd without that, but I applaud them for trying to move into a little more premium looking design here. Going to these shoulders, and initially I was a little worried about the shoulders, but the shoulders are not bad. They have a nice angle to it. Now, it doesn't feel so great to hold. It's like an octagon, holding a stop sign maybe or something, but it's it's okay. I don't hate it. I really would have preferred stacked triggers, especially since these stems and sticks are going to stick way out. It's not going to be all that pocketable, but I don't hate it. I say they're pretty good. Now, it's functionality. They're kind of quiet. I like that. So they're not real super loud, and they seem to click well. Not a problem there. Looking around the rest of this, and we do have a nice vent to exhaust on there. We have our volume on the top and a power button. And then on the bottom, it gets interesting. I was initially very confused because I thought, does this thing have 3 micro SD slots? I was like, what is going on here? But upon looking closer, the 2 outer slots, which look a lot like an SD card slot, are actually the speaker holes. And we do have a single SD card slot and a USB-C port there. There is no microphone jack. So for those of you looking for a 3.5 millimeter jack, it's not on here. So keep that in mind. The overall shape of the back and plastic feels pretty nice. Overall, I'd say that this is definitely a step in the direction of continuing to make a better looking, better feeling product from this company, much like an SJ Gam or some of these others that Gam Ninja. This is a company that started out with some pretty basic, terrible feeling handhelds, but they have really come along, and I'm excited to see where they go from here. This screen looks big and gorgeous. I don't know if the screen is actually the 4.88 that they're claiming. It feels a lot like the 4.5. So as I show you here some comparison between different ones, you can see here as I hold it up to the KTR1, it looks like it's the same size. It's really hard to tell, but 4.5 to 4.88 is not a huge difference anyways, that I don't know if visually I could tell, because again, that's the distance between all corners expanded. So we'll find out as we play with this and everything. Overall, my initial impressions of the hardware is that besides the sort of weird shaped angles and how it's not great to hold, I think the hardware is pretty nice. I kind of like it. I'm digging it. I love the sticks. Thank you for going with the better sticks. The buttons I already loved. And the D-pad this time is pretty good. Gotta say, I like the D-pad. The decision for the inline shoulder buttons, maybe a little questionable, but they work well enough. But let's get this thing fired up and kind of talk about the overall experience with this, including their Android software and implementation. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt the video, but I wanted to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, Aliexpress, and their huge sale that is starting this month on the 16th, their anniversary sale. That's right, Aliexpress is celebrating with a huge sale. And one of the products that you can pick up at a great price is this. Yes, Ambernick's new controller. We've been using this controller and testing it out. And yes, it's a crazy one that has the heartbeat sensor, and it has the screen on it, but it's got great micro switches. It comes in an awesome color like this yellow, and it just hooks up and works. I was able to use the dongle to have it connect really quickly. I also tested it with Bluetooth. You can use it on a variety of items, and like Ambernick usual quality, it's really well made. Make sure you hit the links in the description below so you can save with the codes of the biggest sales of the year. We'd like to thank Aliexpress for as always being our partner in this channel. Check it out, guys. Anyways, back to the show. So we've tested the G99 many times before, most notably on the iNeo Pocket Micro Classic and the KTR1. So the G99 has limitations. Let's start with PS2 performance. PS2 performance can work fairly okay at 1x. You can have games that run pretty well, like Crash Twinsanity. It will run nice and look great at a 1x resolution. You can also bump it up to 1.5x resolution. What you're seeing here in this footage is running at 1.5x, and the game is nice and fluid and looks really good. Now, other games on PS2, something like Jak 3, which is our test benchmark, you can see is going to struggle. No surprise here because we didn't expect Jak 3 to run very well. It hasn't on any of the G99s. In fact, lowering it to even 0.75x, it still struggles. But the catalog of PS2 is pretty wide, and there are some popular games that will run fairly well overall. PS2 is going to be hit or miss, and you're going to have to just tinker with it. I wouldn't think of this as a main PS2 machine. Now, GameCube fares a little bit better. Something like The Simpsons Hit and Run can play fairly okay, especially if you're running at 1x. Now, trying to bump it up to 2x, of course, it's not going to run. It's going to struggle, even on the high performance mode. But at 1x, it looks pretty good. Mario Kart Double Dash looks really good at 1x and plays really well, as long as you remember to switch it from Vulcan over to the GL driver there in Dolphin. Now, where this really shines, or where this really is great, is with Game Boy Advance. This high-resolution 3:2 screen that we've seen before, most notably on the KTR1, is gorgeous. In fact, I would say this screen is probably better. Now, it claims to be a 4.88-inch screen, nearly 0.3 bigger than the 4.5-inch screen on the KTR1. Now, holding these side by side, I could not find that it looks that much different, so I don't know if it really is that 0.88, or they're counting the bezel, or doing those tricks. Either way, this is a gorgeous screen, and one of the strengths of the GameMT EX8. This looks gorgeous. Playing Game Boy Advance on this is a real treat, and it's really crazy to see this huge big screen play at a resolution that matches, because this is a 3:2 ratio, and the resolution of it is pretty nice, so it scales very well. This is simply gorgeous. I love playing Game Boy Advance on this. Now, moving to other systems like Game Boy Color and Game Boy Regular, it looks great as well. You can see here that there's some built-in software. Let's talk about that now. They do have this software which has some online battles. I couldn't get the online battles to actually work because it says it was missing the ROMs, which is curious. Now, they do sell this with a card game, so maybe because I bought the version without the games, that is why. However, there is a nice little software here for beginners, so if someone doesn't really know how to set things up, probably buy it with the games and use this software. It's got a pretty basic layout to it, but it works pretty well. You can go into the games, and in the menu you can do saves, which is important, but you also can change from 4:3 to original to full screen. There's also a setting for the fidelity or the quality of the image, but it doesn't do anything, so I'm not sure if it's just not developed yet. But if you do have it at its native resolution, you're going to see some unique little overlays that they've created, as you see here. So they do have a nice little system here. Now, also, there is the Emulation Station Desktop Edition that is loaded on here, which is pretty interesting, if not maybe a bit controversial. However, because although I am a paid subscriber to the Patreon and I purchased it, already had it, this was already loaded, so take that for what you will. There's also Pegasus on here if you want to set up Pegasus. So there's many ways to set this up, and I imagine if you buy it with the card, perhaps these are already set up. Again, I purchased this with no games because I have games cards and don't really need it. So the overall software experience on this, I would say, has improved from the original that we dealt with GameMT. Way back with some of their earlier systems, like the E5, we did have a lot of issues with their Android implementation. Again, this is an evolution that has continued to improve and really shows the development that they put in as they continue to release products. I would say that this overall Android implementation is pretty good. I like it quite a bit. Overall, this is a pretty interesting product. Let's sum this up, this review, and sum up my thoughts on it. Okay, so what are my overall thoughts of the GameMT EX8? I find that this has a beautiful, large screen, impressive speakers. That is the two qualities of this that I think stand out for it. It also is running a G99 at a price that is coming down. Now, at launch, this is launching somewhere around $130 if you can get it from there. I did pay a little more because, of course, the early adopter tax, but I think if this thing can run around $115 to $120, you're looking at a pretty interesting prospect. Again, the Pocket Micro Classic and the Pocket Micro are over $200 with their premium metal build. But as far as G99s go, you're hard pressed to find one in this range. Now, the Ioneo Pocket Air Mini with the G90T is very close in performance, so you might make the argument that that's a better buy for about $20 less. You can get that supposedly at $99 with shipping. So it's going to be interesting to see if GameMT can get the economics of scale going here and push this down into a price that's more favorable. Because to be honest, besides the screen and the awesome sound here, the Ioneo Pocket Air Mini is just superior in so many ways. It has a better build quality, a better feel to it, better buttons and hardware. Now, the weaknesses of this, again, are this funky shape. I'm starting to get a little used to it after playing it for a while, but for most of my play testing here, I found it to be a little bit uncomfortable. It's nice and thin, but not so small that it's pocketable. Again, the sticks with the stems are protruding very high up, which is not so bad for actually playing, but for pocketability, not so great. Overall, it's got that nice glass finish on the front of it, giving it a bit of a premium feeling, but overall the plastic, while improved from their previous products, is still not quite to the level of something like the Ioneo Pocket Air Mini. I love the screen though. Again, screens can make a big difference, and these are one of those screens that I love, that 3:2 golden ratio that works so well with all the things like PSP at 16:9 or the 4:3 content that we love. I would say overall that if you really value sound and screen and you want the probably largest, best looking GBA experience, this is probably going to be it. I think for me, this is going to be my premium GBA device. Now, I'm someone that has the benefit of having many devices and I can dedicate a machine to a certain device. But for many people, I think it's going to be questionable whether this is going to provide an overall experience that they'd like. Don't forget, we've got some other things out there like the Mangmi Air X and other competing in this price point or a little below it that can do some pretty impressive stuff. PS2, when it's hit or miss, is hit or miss. And like I've said before, until you reach that real Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 level, you're not really playing the full PS2 anyway. So, your mileage may vary. But let me know what you think. Overall, I think that this is a good product. I think I like the E5 Ultra still a little bit better. I think that's got a nicer experience and form factor. I'd like to see this screen in the E5. That would be nice. Put it in that vertical with this screen and keep the hardware the way it is because they've really made that machine really great. Go check out our review if you haven't before. But overall, I'm going to say I like what they've done here. It's pretty impressive, but the price has to be right for this to really matter. Well, let me know what you think. Put it in the comments. I want to hear you. What do you think? Is this overpriced? What about this funky looking sort of shape to it? Remember to hug your loved ones and love your hugged ones because tomorrow's never promised. Remember, check out Aliexpress for those biggest deals or anniversary sales happening right now. Hit those links in the code below. We'll see you next time, Deadheads. Dead Fred out.